After several hours of work here, I've managed to get all the parts cut out from the foam, and they're starting to take shape. This is the center ring with the fingers, and it's really an interesting part. And again, in styrofoam, it's very lightweight. It's going to make us a nice light sign. And once we get the glassing done on this, this will really strengthen it up, and it won't be as fragile as what we've got right here. All the pieces, all the different rings, there's different rings that had to be cut. And that's one thing I've got to be concerned with when I assemble this. Like this ring has got to be inserted inside of this other ring, and right now it doesn't. And so I've got to take a look and sanding these down and getting the clearances I need to once they're glassed so that I can slide it together and assemble it correctly. The other pieces that I did after I did the cutting here on the foam was to make the lettering for the word mini. And I printed these on my, let me zoom in here, there we go. I printed these on my 3D printer, and they're only about 1/16 of an inch thick. Very strong, very solid. And I've just got to sand the surfaces of these and get them so they're nice and glossy. The edges are just beautiful. It turned out really nice. And I'll sand those with wet sanding those and then get them down to like a 600 grit wet sand paper, and that'll get it real super smooth, and then I'll be able to paint them silver for this sign. So the next process we're going to do is take these parts, and if you look at, let me zoom way in here, if you look at the parts, whoop, there we go. These edges have got nice straight sharp edges, but that's not going to work for our fiberglassing. All the edges have to be rounded over, and that's really a simple thing to do here. I'm going to grab a piece of sandpaper quick here. Let me grab one. There we go. Here, okay. I got a piece of sandpaper, and we'll start with just this guy here, just this disc. And we're going to go, I'm going to change this camera around to give you a close-up view of what we're looking at, and then we'll see what this looks like when I sand on it. We were going to start with this centerpiece to sand this off, but I've got to make up a special jig because this part in our sign is going to be dome shaped, and I just can't just knock the edges off to get that shape. So I've got to cut a special jig to do that. So we're going to leave this for farther down in the assembly. Let's get another part here that we can work on. And we'll move some pieces around. There we go. There's a piece for this is part of the S that's on our sign. And again, you can see the real sharp edge here that's on here. And we don't want that. We want to get this sanded down, and we want to smooth this down a bit. It's very smooth. It's, I'm going to take a sanding block and sand this out a little bit more to make this straighter and a little more uniform throughout. And then we're going to take this edge and we're going to sand this down and break this edge. The bottom edge we're not going to be concerned with because that'll be setting down on our sign. We want a nice straight vertical glass rather than wrap around underneath. It's not going to look right. I want to go straight down. So we're going to break this edge to start with, and all we're going to do is take some, let me see what grit this is. This is 180 grit sandpaper. And we'll just take 180 grit, and we're just going to take and lightly start sanding this. And you can see the black is disappearing off of the edge here where I had used a Sharpie. And slowly start working this edge down to break this edge. And let me go grab a sanding block here quick. Or a sanding form. I'm going to start there first. I think what we're going to do is do these edges here first. I'm going to have to zoom my camera out. Let's go here, go out. Whoop. Let me try a different button. There we go. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to take this sander, and it's just a straight edge with sandpaper on it. And we're going to take this edge and start sanding this down. Try to smooth this out a little bit more. I can see it already. That's about all it takes. It's just There, that's it, right there. That's fine right there. Nice, smooth. We're going to get these lines off of here. You don't have to push very hard. This is very, very easy to sand. Get all the marks off so it's all uniform. And there it is. That's it. Got one little mark there. And that edge is ready to go. Other than this edge here. We're going to go all the way around here. We'll sand this all out. That looks good. And then we got to go this way. Let me turn this around. And you could do this just as well with a block of wood and some sandpaper taped to it. And this is like 120 grit on here. Very little pressure you have to sand this out. It's not like sanding wood at all. And I got a curve here, so I'm going to go away from that. We're going to take a regular piece so I can get a curvature in here. And that looks pretty good. Okay, now we'll go back to my edging again. And I want to take this edge and break it down. I want to get a nice rounded edge on here. And we're going to go on this side. As a fiberglass, we won't want to lay down there nice and flat if you got a 90-degree edge on it. There's a different way to do the construction. And all I'm doing is breaking this edge just a little bit. I'm not putting a big radius on here. Let me roll this over. Just enough to break that edge. Yeah, a little more here. Yeah, it's a nice smooth edge. Let me zoom in on this so I can show you. Zoom, we'll come way up. And, oh, that looks pretty good. Right here, you can see a nice rounded edge here. This has got a 90 here, and that's a real sharp edge, but this has got a nice rounded little edge on it. And that'll lay that glass down here then. And when I lay glass down, I'll lay strips down, or one big strip all the way around, and I come down and wrap that right over that corner, and that'll lay down really nice. Because we're going to lay a couple layers of 3-ounce cloth on these pieces, and so I'll have to go around the entire upper edge and get these edges broke down. And let me back it back out again. There we go. So we'll take this part. This again was part of the S that we had cut out. And we'll take all these edges and get them nice rounded, get a nice smooth rounded edge all the way around. And then this part will be ready for glassing. So that'll be the next step with all the parts that are laying here. All these edges have got to be sanded down, and these faces have got to be sanded down. So we'll go through that the next series, and I'll get that work done, and then we'll move on to probably wet sanding the Mini Cooper name. And that'll be very quick and easy. That's real simple to do. And then we'll get into fiberglassing here finally. And so this is another easy step anybody can do. It's something real quick and easy, and just take your time with it, and you'll get a nice finished surface to set up your glassing. After several hours of work, I finally got all the parts sanded, and I wanted to show you how this all works out. This is the center section, and I've got all the pieces stacked up inside. They fit very nice. Right now they slide in very easily. But what I'm going to do is glass this outer ring with the fingers first, skip a ring, then glass the inner ring. And then I'll go back and once those are glassed and smoothed out and ready for paint, then I'll go back to the, let's call this one even odd, the two odd pieces, and get those sanded so they'll slide in, and glass them, and hopefully I'll get it all to slide in perfectly. The reasoning behind this, otherwise if you glass all the parts at once, you're never going to get this thing assembled without a hammer and to get it slid in place. And I've had that happen with another project, which got to be a real nightmare. So you want to sand, or I should say sand in fiberglass every other part, and get those smoothed out to where they're ready for paint, and then go the other parts in between them and get those to fit perfectly where they slide in once they've been glassed and smoothed out. That way when you paint it, you're not struggling to get it into position, get it all mounted up like what you see here. This is going to be, like I said, the midsection. All the other pieces are very simple. They're just flat pieces. Again, those no problem with fit up. One thing I want to show you too here is these rings that are in here. The rings were put together. They were cut first with the hot knife, what I showed you earlier, and then the outer part was cut with a bandsaw, which made things a lot quicker. But to get them the right thickness and so that it would slide together, what I did was I set this up on a drill press with a drum sander and a rip fence. This way I could rotate the disc around and get it all uniform, so it's all the same thickness all the way around. And it took several passes. I put the drum sander into the drill press and slowed it down so it's not going at a real high speed. And so it worked out very well. It smoothed it all out nice, and then you could hand sand the inside. Again, it's kind of neat to see these come together. So anyway, the next step here then will be the discs. This disc and the, let me grab this other one here. This disc and this ring, I've got to set this up so that I can get a curvature on this thing. This in the BMW sign, or I should say not BMW, Mini Cooper sign, the center section of the sign is not flat. It's got a curvature like a dome. So that's what I'm going to set up next. And so let me get that jig put together, and I'll show you how that's all going to be cut and shaped. Well, this is the jig that I put together to cut the curvature on the dome here, or the dome shape, get the dome shape on these pieces. This is the center piece, and then there's a ring on the inside which I pulled out, and then the outer ring, and I taped it so they all spaced correctly. And this gets set into this little jig. These pieces are little 1/4-inch pieces of wood with a curvature on them that I want to have. It'll drop by 5/8 of an inch, I believe, something like that. From the top down, let me put this back. This gets put in here like so. Goes from here down to just ahead of this block here. It'll make a curvature. And this jig is very simple. It's just a piece of scrap wood with a 1/4-inch curvature on these two. They're matched exactly the same. And then they're screwed into this main board. And just a little stopper block here that's been screwed in. So when I'm going to cut this, I'll set this in, and it could be set in here, or it could be set in there. I just didn't want it to slide back and forth, otherwise I'm not going to get the cut right. What I'll do is put it in here like this, and take a hot wire bow, and I'll show you that next, what I'm going to do. It's like the hot knife, only it's just a wire that runs electricity through it. And you'll use these little templates, these little guides, and run the wire across this, and it'll cut a curvature cut across the face of this guy. So I'll make one cut, then rotate it a little bit, make another cut, and make another cut until I go all the way around, and then I'll get a nice dome shape, and then we'll sand it down, and it worked out very well with the BMW sign that I worked on some time ago. And so this is very similar, and so this will be next. I'm going to set up the hot wire bow, and we'll get a video, back the camera up so you can see me run this whole jig and see what it looks like when